Racist manager insults waitress, Messi teaches him a lesson he won't forget. How will this story escalate? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. The bustling sounds of a high-end restaurant filled the air as Sophia hurried from table to table, balancing trays of artfully crafted dishes. Despite the chaos of the dinner rush, she moved with practiced grace, her warm smile never faltering. Sophia took pride in her work as a waitress. She understood the importance of making every guest feel welcomed and valued, regardless of their status or appearance. It was a lesson she carried close to her heart, a reminder of the struggles she had faced as an immigrant working to build a life in a new country. But not everyone in the restaurant shared Sophia's philosophy. Her manager, Mr. Carter, was a man who measured worth by wealth and status. He openly favored the most elite customers, showering them with attention while treating others with barely concealed disdain. For Sophia, who came from a humble background, Mr. Carter's discriminatory behavior was a constant source of stress. She had lost count of the times he had belittled her, questioning her competence and making snide remarks about her accent. Still, she refused to let his cruelty dim her spirit. She knew her worth lay in her work ethic and her kindness, not in the opinions of a narrow-minded man. As she navigated the crowded dining room, Sophia caught sight of a new customer entering the restaurant. He was a young man, dressed simply in jeans and a t-shirt, with a quiet, unassuming air about him. Mr. Carter, who was standing nearby, barely spared the newcomer a glance. In his eyes, a guest without obvious signs of wealth was hardly worth acknowledging. Sophia, however, greeted the young man with her usual warmth. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to our restaurant. Would you like me to show you to a table?" Before the guest could respond, Mr. Carter's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Sophia, don't waste your time on customers like him," he sneered, making no effort to lower his voice. "He probably can't even afford the appetizer." A hush fell over the nearby tables as diners turned to stare. Sophia felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger. She glanced apologetically at the young man, silently willing him to understand that not everyone in the restaurant shared Mr. Carter's views. But as she looked closer, Sophia's eyes widened with recognition. The unassuming guest, the target of Mr. Carter's derision, was none other than Lionel Messi, one of the most celebrated footballers in the world. Lionel Messi stood quietly amid the growing whispers, his expression calm and composed. If he was bothered by Mr. Carter's insulting remarks, he didn't show it. But the other diners were not so restrained. Excited murmurs rippled through the restaurant as people began to recognize the football legend in their midst. "Is that really him? Lionel Messi, here? I can't believe it. What's he doing in a place like this?" Mr. Carter, oblivious to the growing commotion, continued to glare at Sophia and Messi with open disdain. But his smug expression faltered as a waiter rushed over to him, frantically whispering in his ear. Sophia watched as the color drained from Mr. Carter's face. His eyes widened with shock and horror as he realized the magnitude of his mistake. "And Mr. Messi," he stammered, his voice trembling with fear and embarrassment. "I didn't know. Please, let me personally serve you." But Messi simply shook his head, his gaze fixed on Mr. Carter with a quiet intensity. "A good manager respects all workers, not just important customers," he said, his voice calm but firm. "How you treat your staff says everything about you." The restaurant fell silent, every eye fixed on the unfolding scene. Sophia felt a rush of gratitude and admiration for the football star who had chosen to stand up for her, a lowly waitress, in the face of her manager's cruelty. But Messi wasn't finished. In a shocking turn, he turned to Sophia and said, "I would like you to be the one to serve me tonight if that's all right with you." Sophia's heart leapt with surprise and joy. She glanced at Mr. Carter, half expecting him to object, but the manager seemed too stunned to speak. "Of course, Mr. Messi," Sophia said, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. "It would be my honor." As she led Messi to a table, the restaurant erupted in whispers once more. Diners craned their necks to get a better look at the football legend, while the staff watched in awe as the woman they had seen belittled and mistreated for so long became the center of attention. For Sophia, it was a moment of triumph and validation. For the first time since she had started working at the restaurant, she felt truly seen and appreciated. And for Mr. Carter, it was a humiliating reminder of the true meaning of respect and leadership. As the evening wore on, Sophia found herself in a surreal state of disbelief and elation. Here she was, serving one of the most famous men in the world, a man who had chosen her over all the other waitstaff. Messi was a gracious and attentive guest, asking Sophia about her life and experiences. He listened intently as she shared her story of immigrating to the country and working hard to build a new life for herself and her family. "It's not easy, starting over in a new place," Messi said, his eyes filled with understanding. "But you should be proud of what you've achieved. Your hard work and dedication are admirable." Sophia felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. It had been so long since someone had acknowledged her efforts, let alone praised them. "Thank you, Mr. Messi," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Your words mean more to me than you can know." Throughout the meal, Mr. Carter hovered nearby, his face a mask of barely concealed anger and humiliation. He watched helplessly as Messi showered Sophia with attention and respect, the very things he had denied her for so long. As the evening drew to a close, Messi asked for the check. Sophia presented it to him with a smile, her heart full of gratitude for the kindness he had shown her. But nothing could have prepared her for what happened next. When Messi handed the check back to her, Sophia's eyes widened in shock. There, on the tip line, was a figure that made her heart stop: $10,000. "Mr. Messi, this is too much," she stammered, her hands shaking. "I can't accept this." But Messi just smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "You deserve it, Sophia," he said. "Take some time off, spend it with your family. You've earned a break from this place." Tears streamed down Sophia's face as she clutched the check to her chest. She had never held so much money in her life. It was more than just a tip, it was a gift of freedom and possibility. As Messi stood to leave, he turned back to Mr. Carter, who was standing nearby with a look of shock and fury on his face. "A title doesn't make you a leader," Messi said, his voice calm but firm. "How you treat others does. Remember that." With that, he walked out of the restaurant, leaving behind a stunned silence in his wake. Sophia looked down at the check in her hands, then back at Mr. Carter. She saw the anger and resentment in his eyes, but for the first time, she didn't feel afraid. She had seen the truth of Messi's words firsthand. A true leader wasn't defined by wealth or status, but by the respect and kindness they showed to others. And with that realization, Sophia knew that she could no longer work for a man who valued neither. The next morning, news of the incident at the restaurant spread like wildfire. Social media was abuzz with stories of Lionel Messi's visit and the extraordinary tip he had left for a hardworking waitress. But it wasn't just the size of the tip that captured people's attention. It was the story behind it, the tale of a cruel manager put in his place by a football legend, and a deserving employee finally getting the recognition she deserved. The restaurant's phone rang off the hook as journalists clamored for interviews with Sophia and the other staff members. But Mr. Carter refused to take any calls, locking himself in his office in a desperate attempt to avoid the backlash. Sophia, meanwhile, found herself at the center of a media storm. Reporters camped outside her apartment, eager to get a statement from the waitress who had won the respect of Lionel Messi. At first, Sophia was overwhelmed by the attention. She had never sought the spotlight, preferring to do her job quietly and efficiently. But as the messages of support and encouragement poured in from around the world, she began to feel a new sense of confidence and purpose. She thought back to the moment when Messi had handed her that check, and the words he had spoken to Mr. Carter. "How you treat others says everything about you." Those words had struck a chord deep within her. For too long, she had allowed herself to be belittled and mistreated by a man who saw her as nothing more than a servant. But Messi had shown her that she was worth far more than that. With a newfound sense of self-worth, Sophia made a decision. She would no longer tolerate being treated as less than human, no matter how much she needed the job. She marched into the restaurant that day with her head held high, ready to confront Mr. Carter and resign from her position. But when she arrived, she found the place in chaos. News crews swarmed the entrance, shouting questions at the beleaguered staff. Inside, diners who had once clamored for a table now avoided the place like the plague, put off by the story of the manager's cruelty. Mr. Carter was nowhere to be seen, having fled the restaurant in disgrace. The owner, a wealthy businessman who had always turned a blind eye to his manager's behavior, was now scrambling to do damage control. He offered Sophia a hefty raise and a promotion, desperate to keep her on staff and appease the angry public. But Sophia just shook her head, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I appreciate the offer," she said, her voice steady and clear. "But I can no longer work for a place that values status over human decency. I deserve better than that." With those words, she turned and walked out of the restaurant, her head held high. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that she would have to start over in a new job and a new place. But for the first time in a long time, Sophia felt a sense of hope and possibility. She had seen firsthand the power of a simple act of kindness and the impact it could have on a person's life. And she knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would face them with the same strength and dignity that Lionel Messi had shown her. Sophia's story had struck a chord with people around the world. Her bravery in standing up to her abusive boss and her grace in the face of sudden fame had made her an inspiration to many. In the days following her resignation, Sophia was inundated with job offers from restaurants and businesses across the city. They had seen the loyalty and dedication she had shown in her work, and they were eager to have someone like her on their team. But Sophia was in no rush to jump into a new job. For the first time in years, she had the luxury of time and financial stability, thanks to Messi's generous tip. She decided to take a few weeks off to spend time with her family and reflect on what she really wanted out of life. She knew that she loved working in the service industry, but she also knew that she could no longer tolerate the kind of treatment she had endured at her previous job. As she pondered her next move, Sophia received an unexpected call from a local nonprofit organization. They had heard about her story and were interested in hiring her as a spokesperson for their campaign against workplace discrimination. At first, Sophia was hesitant. She had never seen herself as an activist or a public figure. But as she learned more about the organization's mission and the impact they were having on the lives of workers like her, she began to see the potential for change. She thought back to the moment when Lionel Messi had stood up for her, using his platform and influence to send a powerful message about the importance of treating others with respect. If he could use his voice to make a difference, why couldn't she? With a sense of purpose and determination, Sophia accepted the job offer. She knew that it would be a challenge, that she would have to confront the very issues that had caused her so much pain and trauma in the past. But she also knew that she had the strength and resilience to face those challenges head-on. She had survived discrimination and abuse, and she had come out the other side stronger and more determined than ever. As she began her new role, Sophia found herself speaking at conferences and workshops, sharing her story with others who had faced similar struggles in the workplace. She listened to their experiences and offered guidance and support, using her own journey as an example of the power of perseverance and self-worth. Slowly but surely, Sophia began to see the impact of her work. More and more people were speaking out against workplace discrimination, demanding fair treatment and respect for all employees, regardless of their background or status. And as the movement grew, Sophia knew that she was a part of something bigger than herself. She was no longer just a waitress or a victim of abuse, but a leader and an advocate for change. She thought back to the words that Lionel Messi had spoken to Mr. Carter that fateful night: "A title doesn't make you a leader. How you treat others does." Those words had taken on a new meaning for Sophia. She knew that true leadership wasn't about power or status, but about empathy and compassion. It was about using one's voice and influence to lift up others and create a more just and equitable world. And as she continued on her journey, Sophia knew that she would never forget the lesson that Lionel Messi had taught her. That no matter how small or insignificant we may feel, each of us has the power to make a difference in the lives of others. All we have to do is have the courage to stand up for what we believe in, and to treat others with the dignity and respect that every human being deserves. Months passed, and Sophia's life had transformed in ways she had never imagined. Her work with the nonprofit had given her a sense of purpose and fulfillment that she had never experienced before. She had become a sought-after speaker and advocate, traveling the country to share her story and inspire others to stand up against workplace discrimination. She had even been invited to testify before Congress, urging lawmakers to pass stronger protections for workers' rights. But despite her busy schedule and newfound fame, Sophia never forgot the people who had supported her along the way. She stayed in touch with her former co-workers from the restaurant, many of whom had also left in the wake of the scandal. She used her platform and resources to help them find new jobs and navigate the challenges of starting over. She knew all too well how difficult it could be to rebuild one's life after experiencing trauma and abuse. But there was one person who Sophia had not heard from since that fateful night, Lionel Messi. She had tried to reach out to him through his representatives, hoping to thank him in person for the kindness he had shown her. But her messages had gone unanswered, and she had begun to wonder if she would ever have the chance to express her gratitude. Then, one day, as Sophia was preparing for a speaking engagement in Barcelona, she received a surprising invitation. Lionel Messi's foundation, which worked to support children's education and welfare around the world, was holding a gala event in the city. And they wanted Sophia to be a special guest. At first, Sophia was hesitant. She didn't want to impose on Messi or make him uncomfortable by bringing up the past. But as she thought about the impact that his actions had had on her life, she knew that she couldn't pass up the opportunity to thank him in person. On the night of the gala, Sophia arrived at the venue feeling nervous and overwhelmed. She had never attended such a high-profile event before, and she felt out of place among the glittering crowd of celebrities and dignitaries. But as she made her way through the room, she was struck by the warmth and kindness of the people she met. Many of them had heard her story and were eager to express their admiration and support. And then, across the room, she saw him. Lionel Messi, looking as humble and unassuming as ever, surrounded by a group of children who were hanging on his every word. Sophia's heart raced as she approached him, unsure of what to say. But as she got closer, Messi looked up and met her gaze, his eyes widening in recognition. "Sophia," he said, his voice warm and welcoming. "It's so good to see you again." Sophia's eyes filled with tears as she shook his hand, struggling to find the words to express her gratitude. But Messi seemed to understand. "I'm so proud of everything you've accomplished," he said, his smile genuine and sincere. "You're an inspiration to so many people, Sophia. Including me." Sophia's heart swelled with emotion as she listened to Messi's words. She had never imagined that her story could have such an impact, that it could touch the lives of people she had never even met. As Sophia looked around the room at the faces of the children who had gathered to listen to Messi speak, she felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination. These were the young people who would shape the future, who would carry on the fight for justice and equality that she had dedicated her life to. She turned back to Messi, her eyes shining with gratitude and respect. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Your kindness and generosity changed my life and gave me the courage to stand up for what I believe in." Messi shook his head, his expression humble and sincere. "You give me too much credit, Sophia," he said. "You had the strength and resilience inside you all along. All I did was remind you of your own worth." Sophia nodded, tears streaming down her face. She knew that Messi was right, that the power to change her life had always been within her. But she also knew that his actions had been the catalyst that had set her on this path, that had given her the confidence and support she needed to take that first step. As the gala continued, Sophia found herself in deep conversation with Messi and the other attendees. They spoke about the challenges facing workers around the world, and the urgent need for change in the way that businesses treated their employees. Messi listened intently, his brow furrowed with concern. He had always been a vocal advocate for social justice and equality, using his platform to raise awareness about issues ranging from poverty to education to human rights. But as he listened to Sophia's story and the stories of others who had faced discrimination and abuse in the workplace, he realized that there was still so much work to be done. "We have to do better," he said, his voice firm and resolute. "We have to create a world where every person is treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their background or status." Sophia nodded in agreement, her heart swelling with hope and determination. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would be obstacles and setbacks along the way. But she also knew that she was not alone in this fight. She had the support of people like Messi, who used their influence and resources to make a difference in the world. And she had the support of countless others who had faced similar struggles and had come out the other side stronger and more determined than ever. As the gala drew to a close, Sophia and Messi exchanged a final hug, their eyes filled with mutual respect and admiration. They knew that they would always be connected by the events of that fateful night, by the simple act of kindness that had changed both of their lives forever. And as Sophia walked out into the warm Barcelona night, she felt a renewed sense of purpose and hope. She knew that the fight for justice and equality was far from over, that there was still so much work to be done. But she also knew that she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. She had the strength and resilience to face them head-on, and the support of a global community that believed in the power of compassion and respect. And with that knowledge, Sophia stepped out into the world, ready to continue her journey as a leader and an advocate for change. Years passed, and Sophia's work continued to inspire and transform lives around the world. She became a leading voice in the fight for workers' rights, testifying before governments and international organizations about the urgent need for change. She never forgot the lessons she had learned from Lionel Messi, the importance of treating others with dignity and respect, regardless of their status or background. And she never forgot the power of a single act of kindness to change the course of a person's life. As for Mr. Carter, the manager who had once belittled and mistreated her, Sophia learned that he had left the restaurant industry altogether. The backlash from the incident with Messi had been too much for him to bear, and he had been forced to confront the consequences of his actions. But Sophia held no bitterness or resentment towards him. She knew that he, too, was a product of a system that valued status and power over basic human decency. And she hoped that, in time, he would come to understand the true meaning of leadership and respect. Messi, too, continued to use his platform to make a difference in the world. He became a vocal advocate for social justice and equality, using his influence and resources to support countless charitable causes and organizations. And whenever he spoke about the importance of treating others with kindness and respect, he always thought back to that night in the restaurant and the brave young woman who had reminded him of what truly mattered in life. Years later, when Sophia was invited to speak at a conference on leadership and social change, she knew exactly who she wanted to introduce her. As she stood backstage, waiting for her cue, she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned around to see Lionel Messi standing before her, his eyes twinkling with pride and admiration. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice warm and encouraging. Sophia nodded, her heart full of gratitude and determination. "I'm ready," she said, her voice strong and clear. Together, they walked out onto the stage, two leaders united in their commitment to making the world a better place. And as Sophia began to speak, her voice ringing out with passion and conviction, she knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. For she had learned that true leadership was not about titles or status, but about the way we treat others. It was about using our voices and our actions to lift up those around us, to create a world where every person was valued and respected. And with that knowledge, Sophia knew that she would never stop fighting for what was right. She would never stop using her voice to speak out against injustice and inequality, to inspire others to do the same. For in the end, that was the true legacy of Lionel Messi's act of kindness. It was not just about changing one person's life, but about sparking a movement of compassion and respect that would continue to grow and flourish long after they were gone. And as Sophia looked out at the sea of faces before her, she knew that she was not alone in this fight. She had the support of a global community of leaders and changemakers, all united in their commitment to creating a better world. Together, they would continue to push forward, to challenge the status quo and fight for the dignity and respect of every human being. And with each step, each act of kindness and compassion, they would move closer to the world they knew was possible. A world where every person was valued and respected, regardless of their background or status. A world where true leadership was defined not by power or wealth, but by the way we treated others.